Chapter 2: Faith, Belief, and the Limits of Comfort. Belief has always served a purpose. It organizes uncertainty. It reduces anxiety. It offers continuity when explanation is incomplete. In this sense, belief is not an error. It is a response to complexity that exceeds immediate understanding. The problem begins when belief is asked to perform a function it cannot fulfill. Belief as emotional shelter. Belief provides shelter from ambiguity. It creates a stable interior narrative when the exterior world is unpredictable. This function is valuable. Without it, individuals struggle to act, institutions struggle to coordinate, and society struggle to maintain cohesion. But shelter is not structure. Shelter protects from exposure. Structure distributes load. When belief is mistaken for structure, systems begin to fail quietly. They remain motivated, but misaligned. They remain sincere, but incoherent. They remain confident, but brittle. When belief stabilizes and when it anesthetizes. Belief stabilizes when it supports responsibility. It allows individuals and systems to act decisively in the absence of complete information. Belief anesthetizes when it replaces examination. The distinction is subtle and often missed. When belief supports action while remaining open to correction, it functions as orientation. When belief deflects discomfort and delays recalibration, it becomes insulation. Insulation feels safe. It is not adaptive. Systems that anesthetize themselves remain calm as alignment erodes. They interpret discomfort as noise rather than signal. They treat pressure as interference rather than information. By the time instability becomes undeniable, corrective capacity has already diminished. Comfort versus coherence. Comfort is the absence of immediate distress. Coherence is the alignment of internal relationships. These are not the same. Comfort can be manufactured. Coherence cannot. Belief often increases comfort by simplifying complexity. It narrows interpretation, assigns meaning, and resolves ambiguity quickly. This allows systems to move forward without hesitation. But movement is not coherence. Coherence requires ongoing reconciliation between intention, capacity, and consequence. It demands adjustment rather than affirmation. It tolerates discomfort in exchange for stability. When comfort is prioritized over coherence, systems drift. The drift is gradual. The correction is not. Why sincerity does not cancel consequence. One of the most persistent assumptions in human systems is that sincerity mitigates outcome. That good intention should soften consequence. That effort should excuse misalignment. That belief should protect from correction. Reality does not operate on sincerity. Consequence follows structure, not motive. Systems do not fail because they are insincere. They fail because internal relationships no longer support the load placed upon them. Intention does not repair misalignment. Effort does not redistribute responsibility. Sincerity can coexist with collapse. This is not a judgment. It is an observation. The moment belief replaces alignment. The critical moment is not when belief exists, but when belief substitutes for alignment. This substitution occurs when belief is used to explain away discomfort rather than investigate it, preserve identity rather than recalibrate function, defend continuity rather than examine structure. At this point, belief no longer orients action. It justifies inaction. The system remains convinced it is right. It becomes increasingly wrong. Belief and the avoidance of responsibility. Belief often carries an unspoken promise, relief from burden. Not relief from action, but relief from uncertainty. Relief from doubt. Relief from the continuous effort of self-examination. This promise is appealing. Responsibility without certainty is heavy. It requires acting while remaining open to being wrong. It requires holding authority without hardening into identity. Belief offers an alternative, certainty without recalibration. Systems that accept this exchange feel lighter, temporarily. But responsibility does not disappear. It relocates. Unknown responsibility accumulates elsewhere, often in the form of external pressure. The structural limits of faith. Faith is often treated as boundless. In practice, it has limits. Faith can motivate action. It cannot substitute for alignment. Faith can sustain morale. It cannot stabilize structure. When systems attempt to use faith as a structural element, they create blind spots. Signals that contradict belief are discounted. Feedback is interpreted as challenge rather than correction. Over time, the system becomes insulated from reality. Insulation delays failure. It magnifies collapse. The cost of unquestioned conviction. Conviction accelerates decision-making. It also accelerates error. When conviction is unexamined, it reduces sensitivity to nuance. It replaces listening with assertion. It transforms uncertainty into threat. This dynamic appears across domains. Individuals double down rather than recalibrate. Organizations repeat strategies rather than reassess assumptions. Institutions enforce narratives rather than examine outcomes. Conviction preserves momentum. It does not preserve stability. Alignment as a lived condition. Alignment is not a belief. It is a condition. It exists when internal relationships support external demands. When authority matches responsibility. When capacity is paired with accountability. When action produces proportional consequence. Alignment must be maintained. It cannot be declared. Belief can accompany alignment. It cannot replace it. This distinction determines whether systems remain adaptable or become fragile. When this is ignored, when belief replaces alignment, systems experience correction as betrayal. Constraints feel unjust. Consequences feel hostile. Feedback feels aggressive. The system does not recognize these responses as information. It interprets them as opposition. At this stage, correction becomes increasingly external, less precise, and more disruptive. The protective sentence. This book does not oppose belief. It observes its limits. Belief is not the problem. Belief becomes a problem only when it replaces alignment. That boundary preserves belief's usefulness while preventing its misuse. Why modern systems rely heavily on belief? Modern systems operate at scales that exceed direct comprehension. No individual fully understands the systems they depend on. Trust becomes necessary. Belief fills the gap left by incomplete visibility. This reliance is unavoidable. The danger arises when belief becomes permanent rather than provisional. When trust replaces verification. When confidence substitutes for coherence. Systems must rely on belief. They must not depend on it exclusively. Belief and identity lock in. When belief uses with identity, recalibration becomes personal. Correction threatens self-concept. Adjustment feels like betrayal. Change appears as loss rather than adaptation. Identity lock-in is one of the strongest inhibitors of system health. It transforms structural signals into emotional threats. It converts feedback into attack. It renders self-evaluation intolerable. The system protects itself by rejecting information. The quiet erosion. Belief-based insulation does not cause immediate failure. It produces quiet erosion. Alignment weakens incrementally. Minor inconsistencies are tolerated. Exceptions accumulate. Boundaries blur. Responsibility diffuses. The system continues to function, but it no longer functions cleanly. By the time instability becomes visible, the internal capacity to respond has already been compromised. What belief cannot do? Belief cannot redistribute load. It cannot repair misalignment. It cannot absorb consequence. It cannot override constraint. Belief can orient action. It cannot stabilize structure. Expecting belief to perform structural work is a category error. The transition this book makes. This book does not ask belief to disappear. It asks belief to step aside when structure requires examination. It restores language for coherence that belief alone cannot provide. It offers description where affirmation has failed. Not to diminish belief, but to prevent its overextension. Closing constitutional statement. Comfort is not stability. Sincerity is not alignment. Belief is not structure. When belief supports responsibility, systems remain adaptable. When belief replaces alignment, correction becomes unavoidable. The limits of comfort define the boundaries of belief. End of chapter 2.